Well, it goes back a little bit further than that, too. I grew up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. So in a way, I'm coming back to the Mid-Atlantic states, which feels a little bit like closer to home.
Yeah.
And then professionally and through education, traveled around a fair amount. I did my undergraduate work at a small school called Lawrence University in Wisconsin, and then went to graduate school at Columbia University in New York, where I did a degree in architecture. So I'm actually trained as an architect, although I've never practiced. I've done other things. I worked for a long time in the historic preservation field, but always stayed close to museums. They were always something I was fascinated by. And my wife is an architectural historian, and her career took us first to Chicago and then to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And when we got to Pittsburgh, I had a chance to jump into the museum field all the way, and worked at the Carnegie Museum of Art there for about 8 or 9 years as a curator. I became a curator of architecture there. And after we did that, we then moved to the Boston area, to Wellesley, Massachusetts, where I became the associate director of the Davis Museum at Wellesley College. And that was a very conscious move from the program side, which I still love. I love building exhibitions, doing exhibitions, to the administrative side of running a museum. It was something that I found I was quite interested in and had a chance to work on a little bit when I was in Pittsburgh. You know, I really came to this primarily interested in architecture, but then as my own career evolved and I became interested in other things, it was really the notion of a physical world that intrigued me. Mm-hmm. And that is something that is manifested in the visual arts. It's manifested in architecture. It's manifested in things like dance, for that matter. So my view has gotten broader and broader. And I think that this is happening in museums generally. They are also, especially in college campuses, I think that what is required to have a museum, and a serious museum, in any setting, on a college campus, in a town, requires that you be able to make a very compelling case for the significance of that institution across disciplines and across areas of interest. I think that's one of the things that's really intriguing about this particular museum, is that it really serves as a cultural hub within the community. And that certainly was something that appealed to me when I found out about the opportunity to come here. We all have these lists of lots of projects we'd like to explore, and there certainly are a number of them that I've got. But the other thing about this being the museum that I now have the privilege of serving as director, is that there's also an awful lot of the management of these institutions too, and that has gotten more sophisticated in the recent past. A lot more demands on the people who have that privilege of managing museums like this. I think the good thing about it is that it forces you to become very explicit about why it is important to have these institutions and communities. We really are mission driven, and therefore a lot of my job is making a really compelling case for what we do, and one that will appeal to a lot of people and offer ways for a lot of people to engage with us. I think that one of the things that really appealed to me, the more I learned about this, is that this is a museum that has this very strong and deep roots in the practice of art and in the training about art. Many, many museums add educational programs around a collection, but the collection pre-exists. We have a collection that starts with the beginning of the institution, but our roots are also very much tied into training in art in the studio itself. That's one of the things about smaller institutions. You know, they face this decision-making process about, do we attempt to operate at the scale one way or another, either in the content of our exhibitions or in the way we present them? Do we try to do what the big boys do? Or do we find a niche for ourselves where, because we can't do those things, we can do other things? The idea is that there will be some people who will come because of the subject matter of an exhibition. And I want them to leave satisfied that they learned something about a subject they already cared about, but also impressed by the way that we dealt with it. So that the next time we do an exhibition, that is about a subject they didn't think they cared about. They will come because they know it's going to be interesting.
But I mean, have you found a place to live?
We're working on that. But we've lived in cities, we've lived in the suburbs. I grew up in the country, and there are lots of options here and opportunities here. We're very attracted by the idea of living in town. I have always been happiest when I've been able to walk to work. And so that this offers that as a possibility. So we're still very much looking.